Because when I see that somebody, you know, of course, when you're coming out and you're brand new, you're not going to have all the knowledge that you need. But if you're willing to learn, if you're moldable, that's huge. Again, much rather have somebody who's moldable than somebody who's not. Because if I give you feedback, you'll listen. Boom. And then the third is, I'd say, lean into your creativity. You know, we all have our own backgrounds and our own upbringing, which allows us to see problems differently. Like, talk about that. You know, talk about what you uniquely bring, and the pride that you take when you talk about your solution, whether it's right or wrong, doesn't really matter. It just shows you have, you know, a perspective that you're going to speak up and bring. And that, to me, like, those are my favorite kinds of people to bring into the fold.
Yeah. Just so everybody, you know, I'm a witness to that, you know, working at Motivate Design and having the background I had, not being a classically trained guy in advertising and things like that. And then, you know, Mona opening her doors to people that just like have that potential to do stuff, but maybe not the background to do stuff, is huge. So I could definitely attest to that. And we need more companies like that, which is why I asked her to join this chat, because that is the perfect example of diversity and inclusion in advertising. Like, Mona is like the epitome of giving us that opportunity to get in the door, because some of the work that she does is with some really big clients, some of the most influential brands across the world. Like, she let me, you know, when I worked with her, I got to work with Pfizer, and I got to work with, you know, Cox, you know, and things like that. So it's like, I got to work with some really great people on other accounts, like, you know, PayPal, like some of the biggest brands in the world. Like,
yeah,
you know, you get to do work with those brands and work with the people that work with those brands. So it's like really cool. You know, it was a really cool experience. So that's why I wanted her to, you know, meet Kenny and all of you, because, you know, she falls in line with our mission here. And then she's also working on some really brilliant stuff, like that gray zone thing she mentioned earlier is, you know, basically, you know, in my opinion, maybe one of the best ways to solve big problems, especially social justice, because it's an immersive experience to basically put you into the shoes of like someone who's experienced harassment or racism or whatever. Like, it literally, you know, gives you a theatric presentation and lets you kind of feel, you know, what's happening instead of just talking about it through a survey or, you know, discussing it with your friends or whatever the case may be. It's like an immersive experience. But, you know, Mona, tell us a little bit about that and where you want to take that, so that Kenny can probably, like, you know, maybe get some ideas.
Yeah. So firstly, it's free. And secondly, I'm going to mess with your head. Like, I just want to, like, all that to be out there. So the first one that we did was around sexual harassment. And it's in the archive if you want to check it out on that website I just put up. So we had a senior, like a white male, older professor, and a young white female. And these two are having a conversation on Zoom about the older professor's son. And you watch this quick video about this conversation. And this conversation takes place on Zoom because it happened after COVID. And this is what we decided, like, we wanted to show that harassment happens even on Zoom. So you watch this thing, everyone votes on whether sexual harassment happened or didn't happen, right? About 70% of usually said, yes, it happened. Then I show you the same video, the same script, the same characters, but completely different tone. And in that one, only 30% think sexual harassment happened. So I'm not going to ruin it for you, but there's obviously a difference. And same words, but because of what you saw, and whichever one you saw first, you had a different story. And then we talk about it. And that talking is what's really interesting to me, because this all started because someone said to me, I can't sit and have dinner with a Trump supporter. Not that I'm a Trump supporter, but I think you should be able to sit down and have a conversation with anyone. You know, like that, it's very easy to have empathy for people who you like and people who are just like you. But especially right now, what's important is to have conversations with people that you don't like, or that have a very different point of view, and be able to hold your cool and still continue that conversation. So that's what I'm trying to teach in a very fun way. This next one is about racism. And the reason that happened is we had a gray zones around the sexual harassment. It was Blackout Tuesday. I didn't feel comfortable doing a show that day. So we took the day off and came up with this concept. And then we launched it within 2 weeks. And this one is a set of voicemails that you listen to, and you tell me whether harassment happens or doesn't. Again, remember, I'm messing with you though. So the first voicemail is by a woman named Karen. Okay. So, like, the whole idea is for people to have a conversation about the kinds of things that they find annoying. nothing is egregious. Like we aim for 70% of people to be like, yep, that is, and 30% to say, I don't know what you're talking about. So everything's going to be subtle and everything's going to have a different perspective. And on the calls, you're going to have people who are like, I really don't know what she said wrong. And you have other people on the call saying, I would smack her if I saw her on the street. And so that's what this dialogue is. It's really to allow both these kinds of people and everyone in the middle to see how many different perspectives exist. And all of those track to your upbringing, you know, and to just have the conversation so you can understand where people come from. So, you know, it's .org. It's like not made to make money. It's not made to do anything other than increase empathy. And we did it because we need to. I don't know. It's like glad to be out there.
Absolutely. This is the perfect timing. Kenny, what do you think about that? Mr. Diversity and Inclusion Guru.
I'm nobody. I'm hashtag not special. I'm just
you're
here.
Not special, but somebody has a wallpaper of their face, of your face behind them. What are you talking about?
Well, because but see what Mona said, I'm a background. So that means I'm not in the front. So not special once again. She's the one that's special. But I mean I find it very interesting because I feel like that's a model that a lot of people could use in the field, just when you think about how to put the CEO in a middle or junior person's place. Right. If you were to make that scenario, because junior and middle people normally don't have a voice at the table, but how would it feel for a CEO or someone that high up to be put in that place again, if they even remember what it's like being at the table and not have a voice. So that, I think that would be a very interesting thing to put people in those scenarios. Also in unconscious bias scenarios, as you kind of mentioned earlier. I think that's something that we all have to kind of look at from the outside looking in to kind of figure out where our biases lie. But I think in regards to advertising alone, in an industry that Clarence and I have spent a lot of time in, the biases are systemic, and they've turned systemic just due to the fact that they've gone unchecked for so long. So it's almost like, how do you untrain that thinking?
So one thing I've been thinking about, and you'll see it in the Gray Zones experience, is how you persuade people to do anything. You know, when you say to someone, you have an implicit bias, there's going to be, in some cases, shame on the other side of that. And although shame is a powerful emotion, it doesn't often lead to action. It leads to shutting down, it leads to anger, it leads to frustration. So I'm not trying to shame people. What I'm trying to do is not even point out the implicit bias, but just say, did you hear something? And if you didn't hear it, did someone else hear it? And could you learn from them? And staying in the realm of learning, of gamifying, as Clarence had called it earlier, of hunting, of curiosity, of intrigue, of fun, of entertainment. You know, I'm catering, and sometimes I feel kind of crappy about that, but I'm catering to the human psychology so that I get you to do what I want you to do, which is be more open, right? Like I'm looking at the end game saying, I want to take you here, but I don't know, even though it makes me feel really good sometimes to yell at people, you know, I don't know if yelling and shaming and guilting is going to lead to the result that I want. So it's just a strategy play. Like I'm playing chess, you know, and I'm doing it also because I think that's why I'm here. You know, I have a set of Black friends who say, you're not white, let me tell you what I feel. And I have a set of white friends who say, you're not Black, let me tell you how I feel. So I think without choosing, I've been put in this arbitrator role, you know, where I'm hearing multiple sides, and I feel like if I can help people hear other sides, we get to neutral, and neutral is where we can build from, you know, with less anger, less frustration, though obviously these are very, I can understand why we have these emotions. I'm just looking from a strategy perspective of, is this going to move me forward? Am I going to win?
Yeah. And anyone else, by the way, if anyone else wants to chime in, ask questions.
I'll add one more thing. You know, when people say the bias training, I haven't heard anybody be like, yay, me.
No, I'm like, fuck no.
Right? So like, we're not doing something right. We're not doing something right. If we're like, making people learn about their implicit bias in this boring online format, like, come on, this is an important thing for people to get. I also think implicit bias is like level 402, like let's chill and bring it back to like microaggressions. Maybe even below that might be like racism, like give them something concrete that they can understand and then build from there. Implicit bias is advanced. You're asking me to find something I didn't even know I had, and it's going to make me feel like my identity is being questioned. Like, I don't know if we should be starting there.
Yeah.
From a learning, teaching perspective. Maybe I'm wrong. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
Definitely. But
right.
yeah, I mean, I'm gonna open it up to the floor.
Yeah,
Everything
please.
you guys just heard, thank you so much. Everything that you guys just heard, please, ask some questions if you have it.
Mm-hmm.
Let me look in the chat if I see any questions. And don't be afraid. This is like, I know it's we just said a lot of things around not being comfortable, but it's super fine. Mona can take anything. She can take me. She can take anything. Question from Ernst.
Hi, Mona. My question is like, how do you make the surveys non-biased, like from the jump? Like, how do you go about making it so it doesn't like favor one side or like it's lacking in insight towards?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. In general, as a researcher, we try our best to eliminate bias. As a design thinker and as a theater producer, which is what you should think of this show as, you cannot remove bias, right? Like it exists, and as we're all talking about, it's very hard for you to see. So I did not remove bias. In fact, I leaned into bias. So for example, I start with Karen. In fact, no, sorry, before that, I start with this question, which is how do you identify? I don't ask you to like actually pick one, but people just assume I'm asking you to pick one. And I put all kinds of random things in there, like white, Caucasian, Jewish, Black, African-American, like all kinds of things are in there to piss people off. And then I start with Karen to piss people off. There's 2 voicemails from Karen back to back. No one else has 2 voicemails back to back to piss people off. I am leaning into bias. I'm going to get you to get frustrated, to get annoyed, to get angry, so I can show you how quickly I could do it. Right? And I'm giving you kind of the secret to this. So I'm ruining a little bit of the experience, but whatever, tell your friends, it'll be different for them. But, for this, I'm using what I know about human psychology and creating an experience, just like if I was creating a show, right? Where I intentionally put characters in different places. And I'm going to give you a lot of this background, so it's not going to be as fun for you, but watch someone else do it and you'll get kind of both sides. I also, you'll notice, put background noises in to all the white characters, but none to the Black characters, just to annoy you. Just because you're like, why is she outside? Why is she making all this noise? Why is she not? And people did. They got very annoyed. And so we did a lot of things in here because it's a show, and it's designed to take you through an experience around empathy. But before I tell you that you aren't empathetic enough, I need to show you you're not empathetic enough. And then you listen to me. So it's a great question. In this particular case with gray zones, we didn't. In research, when we tried to do it, our job is to remove bias. And we're talking about confirmation bias, or we're talking about primacy or recency effects, these kinds of things that researchers think about. I will tell you, Ernst, like having done this for 20 years, we think we remove it, but we don't. A beautiful woman as your moderator is going to change the results. A young woman is going to change the results. A man that talks down to you or has a voice that you don't understand will change the results. Like there's so many things that influence research that it is almost impossible to remove 100% of the bias, though they try.
100. That's so true. We got a question from Sam as well.
Hi, Mona. Thank you so much for sharing. Really appreciate your insight in this and your insight in terms of just like trying to change people's perspective, and I love that. My question is that, given that you've done all these experiments and social experiments, and you've talked to all different kinds of people. Have you encountered people who are, even after you've gone through this with them, are still completely negligent of their bias and are unwilling to accept it? And if so, how do you approach those people? Because obviously it's a problem that we need to fix, but if people aren't willing to change themselves, are they just going to be like, all right, well, forget about you, we're going to focus on the people we can change? Or you still try to work on those people?
Yeah, I love this question. So I am forgetting about them right now, but I have thoughts on how to handle them. So the first answer is yes, we've had, of 300 people who've gone through, 3 people have had, one person said, well, this is only for white people. One person said, I don't know what you want me to do next, which I thought was interesting because the whole point is for you to take, some accountability. And then I was telling Clarence this morning, one person sent me an email, like kind of found me and sent me an email, said, delete my data. I don't want anybody to know what I said. So we've had 3 out of, 300. 297 have said, this is humbling and really opened my eyes. And then those 3. So the numbers are great, but of course there's always going to be the ones that, make you breathe very deeply. For those that make you breathe very deeply, here's what I'm figuring out. Everyone wants to be heard, understood, and loved. Right? And so if I want to get them to change, they have to feel that from me. If they feel judged, if they feel like I'm attacking them, if they feel like I'm trying to change them or that I'm judging their identity, they're not going to. Usually people double down on their belief system when they feel that way because they're in defense mode and they're not even operating from the same part of their brain as the part that thinks and changes and evolves. So we need to get them to move away from their monkey brain of like fear-based and into their prefrontal cortex, which is like thinking. And the way to do that, firstly, is you have to listen to them. Where does their belief come from? Why do they think that? And some of those conversations might take years. And so if it's someone in your home or in your life, like that might be a commitment that you're willing to make, especially about a topic like race or about sexual harassment or, the topics that we're talking about. But hearing them, where does that come from? And to me, again, this is my technique, is everyone has beliefs, but not all of them are sturdy. Like you could ask someone like, why are you pro-choice? And, some people can give you a really well articulated thought about why they're pro-choice, and others are like, I don't know, because I am. And those are the ones that you go into. So just talk me through it. Like, when was the first time you can remember thinking about this? What was that experience like? And then how did you form the thought that pro-choice or pro-life or whatever you're talking about, right, was going to be what you believed in? And then what happened? And then what happened? And if they can do it on their own, you're winning. Again, this is about listening. This is about empathy. This is about understanding. The second you go in and you're like, but what about, back to defensive mode. So if it's a person that's important and it's a topic that's important, that's the technique that I would use. Persuasion is very different than yelling, very, or being right or proving your point. Persuasion is about bringing somebody, to the table so that they can see a different set of options and maybe choose something different for themselves because they have a benefit in their own life of believing that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Great question. I will think more about that because it's something that, especially with race, is something we have to, we can't just give up on people. We can prioritize and deprioritizing. Let me get more allies. We could do that. Let me get more groundswell. Let me move this forward. Let me start the domino. Those are all great strategies, but we can't just say like, you're useless. So we do need a plan for certain people.
Absolutely.
Great.
Thank you.
There was another one, I think, too.
Is that a question from Ali, or are those just assignments to teams?
No, yeah, that'll be a question.
Okay.
Mona, thank you so much for that. I want to talk about, I found your proudest achievements very interesting and the reasoning behind those. One around external validation and second around putting yourself first. When you grow up in an environment where external validation is very important, or you grow up very traditionally where you're trained to think about others first, how do you sort of unlearn that behavior and become comfortable with that?
I'm still figuring it out. I definitely grew up in a more traditional household where, we were taught, even if you go into someone's home and you're so thirsty, do not ask for anything. do not impose or ask for like a glass of water, nothing. Like, don't be a burden on anybody else. And so some of this stuff is ingrained, right, as a child. If you really want to get deep, the way to actually solve for this, because I've talked to a lot of people about it, is to talk to your inner child. Like, if you want to go here, let's go here. So part of what you need to do is parent your inner child, right? Somebody taught your inner child, when you were a child, that it's not okay to do X, or you are Y, or you're too much Z, you're not enough A. Someone, it could have been a teacher, maybe it was a parent, it could have been your friends, some bullies, a lot of that talk got in, so as you get older, you got to parent your own inner child and say, that wasn't right. That information wasn't right. Here's what I want you to know instead. And just like we all make mistakes, it's almost apologize for that piece of information coming in to your child, and just say, you were taught that you weren't worthy or that you're not special, but I'm here to tell you you are. And that can be in a journal, that can be in a meditation, that can be, right now. But you do have to unlearn the things that you've learned. And unlearning is harder than learning, especially when you're older. But that's been the advice that's been given to me, and it totally works. Hypnosis is like a crazy version of doing it, but it works. So, anything like that, affirmations, all this stuff, I absolutely believe in, because I think that we have enough data that shows our brain is working even when we think we're not thinking. So if you can program parts of your brain, you just use parts of your brain, read books on how your brain works, and you'll hear everything that I'm saying. You can reprogram it to believe what you want it to believe, which you are worthy. You are special. You're here to do something amazing. You deserve to put yourself first. Make sure you're loved the way you expect to be loved. All these things are incredibly important. It's what I tell my kids. So of course, then why wouldn't I tell me?
Victoria?
Woo woo, we're going here. I can feel it.
I actually had a very similar question to Ali, but let me try to rephrase that. So if it's not different, totally move on to the next.
Please.
As a CEO and leader, how have you really kept your biases on check? I know that we all have them naturally, but especially when it's not only about diversity and inclusion, it's also about ourselves and how we grew up.
Yes.
What has a growing curve been like of like learning that, or like what's something that you've kind of, I don't know, an experience or a situation where you really needed to check that when it was with working with your team?
Yes. Okay. So firstly, I'm going to say biases are not bad. Remember, the reason we have biases are so that we have shortcuts to process all the information that's coming at us in the world. If we didn't have these, we would be overwhelmed with the number of decisions and choices. The challenge is when biases don't serve you, when they're unintentionally prioritizing or deprioritizing something that shouldn't be because that doesn't align to your values, right? And that's what you're looking to catch. And so those learnings are painful because it's your values that are going to be questioned. I'll give you a very what's a good example of when I had to completely change? I know. So I had just had my second child. So this is, he's 7 now. I came back to work too soon. So I had my hormones going absurd. I'm like, it's just a disgusting feeling, just like I hated everything about it. My business started so we had one huge client that had more than half of our revenue, which is a no-no, but in the agency world, it's like when you have it and you're going to go on maternity leave, you're just like, whatever, I'll deal with this later. The worst case scenario happened. That client said, we're going to take a break for a little while. And I didn't want to lay people off. So I kept people on staff. So now I'm burning through money. I was the most stressed. And there was one point where a researcher said something really disrespectful. She didn't mean to be disrespectful later, I figured out. But at the time, she's like, well, how do you know that? And why do you think you're right? And I'm not going to listen to you. It was something along those lines. And I lost my shit. I think I was yelling at her at one point. And I think back to like, oh my God, I was yelling at her. But at the time I was so mad. And I was so like, do you know what I'm doing for you? Do you know that I'm like bleeding money so that I can make your fucking payroll and you're yelling at me? Right? That's what I was thinking. And I remember later, both on Glassdoor and in person, she resigned and she said, I do not want to work for a leader like you. And I remember thinking like, wow, me neither. Like, you know, luckily I had the sense to not be too defensive about it. But I was like, that is the nastiest I've ever been. And so to unpack that of like, look, you know, I'm not the nicest person all the time. I have some demons to work on, gave me a lot of empathy for other people's demons. You know, I think you have to see that. Like, if you think you're better than everybody, it's really hard to have empathy for other people. But when you see that you're kind of crappy and you just treated someone with so much disrespect because you thought she did, you think that's okay? You know, it was the ugliest version of me that I've ever seen. And it took a lot to come back from that. But it's such a scarring experience. And I think someone else had said this, I can't take credit for it, but it's like, are you operating from the scar or from the wound? You know, and, you know, scars, like you can learn from and say, I'm not going to be that ever again. And you're determined to not be that, but sometimes you need those falls to be able to do that. So it's not like, you know, I'm always doing affirmations like, I'm just going to be amazing. Like, I've had some really, really steep falls and they hurt. And from there, I change. You know, from there, I say, I'm not going to do that again. And these are like new rules and new habits and new things that I'm putting in place to make sure that I don't ever do that again. And I haven't, and I won't, you know, but sometimes you got to fall hard for some of those lessons. I think we're all afraid of it. Like, even the question, like, you know, and I get it. It's like, how do you control biases? You can't. You're going to learn from them. You're going to say something stupid. You're going to, you know, do something stupid. And that's where you're going to learn from. But the more stupid things we do, the faster you're going to learn.
Mm-hmm. It's not about the fact that you fell. It's how you get out, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Or trying to avoid, because then you're just not jumping. Yeah.
Exactly.
Thank you so much. That was super. Yeah, thank you for your vulnerability and honesty.
Thank you. My face is
2 more questions.
I'm like remembering it. I'm like, oh.
That was deep.
It was not a good look at all. It was not a good look.
Yeah.
But that's like when my ego was like massively high, you know, and I just thought that I knew too much.
Cool. Yeah, no, that's great. I'm glad you got the chance to, you know, share that. So we got 2 more, one from Mohammed, and then we're going to go to Oscar.
Hi, Mona. My question to you is, how do you handle a client sometimes when you find out their best interest was not to find in your insights, but rather they were looking for validations?
Yeah.
And how do you kind of like convince them that that's not the right way to go?
So, you know, this is a good question. Our job is to provide what we find insightful may not be what they find insightful. Right? So if you architect your entire arrangement with them on what do you know and what do you want to know, then my job as a researcher and a strategist is to tell you what you want, the answer to what you wanted to know. If they don't do anything with it, that is on them. And my rule is to tell them 3 times. You know, so phrase it 3 different ways, try it through different ways. So say it, maybe show it through a sketch, maybe show it through a competitive analysis, like, you know, really try to sell it. But after 3, I'm done with the project. And the reason I've done that is because not everybody learns the first time they hear something. And I'm trying to create space and respect for that. You know, some people need to do this project 3 or 4 times before they're going to move forward. And this has happened to me with clients, and these clients are big. You know, some of the biggest clients don't want to change too much because whatever they're doing is working. Like Nike's Nike because they're Nike. You know, so if you come back and you're like, change your entire membership program, they're like, really? Off of 12 interviews? No, thanks. Right. And so sometimes you have to do more than one project, and it's kind of it's unfair to assume that they're going to make a change based on your engagement once. But with that said, my job is to convince you. And the whole project is around convincing you, around pulling people into the research process, around making them aware and making the research that we do available to them in a very raw form. So they know that we didn't kind of gloss over it, but like this is real information from people. And then usually if we do that well, they find the insight. And if they find the insight, they activate faster than if you give them an insight.
Okay. Thank you so much.
The short version of that is like make all strategy work their idea. Then it works.
Yep. Agreed. And Osman.
Hi, thank you, Mona, for sharing with us. My question, well, so when you were talking about gray zones, what came to mind was sort of what happened in the canon recently in the past few weeks, and you were saying how gray zones is meant to hold people, or for people to have themselves find that accountability to see their own bias, and I was just wondering, how do you feel about cancel culture? Because that's where my mind went when.
Yeah. I am not a fan. Again, if I'm on one side saying have empathy for all different points of view, to me, and again, from what I understand of it, cancel culture feels like judging. It's deciding that somebody is not worthy. And by the way, sometimes you're right. I get it. But it's the opposite of empathy. And my personal belief is that if you can help someone feel heard, understood, loved, you can change their mindset. And the way to change them is to get them to realize where there are gaps in their understanding and in their logic. And it is exhausting, by the way. So it's not something that I plan to do to every person that I ever meet in my life, except maybe through gray zones. Like a lot of what I've been thinking about, what I've been talking to Clarence about, is about how do you scale this concept of empathy? How do you get people with all kinds of backgrounds to learn from each other and not have that judgmental, quick, like out, no, not right, not for me. That's my short answer to it, that it feels good. Anything that feels that good might be your ego. And anything that takes a lot of work and feels like, again, might be your heart.
Thank
Really,
you.
these are some gems, really good gems. Like, seriously. Yeah, definitely insightful for sure. Every time I talk to Mona, I learn something new. So, and even this tonight included. So, like, you guys, this is like a gift. Any more questions?
Yeah. Anybody else? Anything you want to know? I'm happy to help. I mean, this group is already asking some of the toughest questions I've gotten. So these are great.
Nice. Well, we do have 10 more minutes. If you want to talk about something else, feel free, or we could just end it early. Let me know, Kenny, what you want to do. Is it 10 minutes back, or something else you want to bring up?
Wait. Oh, Jeremy, did you have a question? I guess going once, going twice. Okay. I guess not. I guess the question I would have, and it can be the last question because I know the fellows have a lot of work to do tonight. How do you stay inspired?
That's a great question.
I know it's my program. I ask very good questions.
I love it. I love it. This is my stalling answer. That's how you stall. Come on, Kenny.
Yeah, that's how you stall.
That's how you stall. That's how you can think, come up with a good one. It's a mediocre question. So in your mediocre question answer, I think you have to be pulled. A lot of times people they spend a lot of time thinking about like, what's my purpose? I believe that if you feel incredibly aligned, you're fulfilling your purpose. It's not something you find, it's like something you do. And so I stay inspired when I'm in that zone, where like things are working out because I'm not making anything work out, but I'm supposed to be here, for example, and this keeps me inspired. Like I feel like I'm here and there's one person here who needed to hear something the way I said it. And that person likely, this is usually what happens, that person likely will hit me up on Instagram and say like, this was awesome. And then I feel inspired because it's like I spent the time and I did what I was here to do, which is help someone else, right? Every time that happens, it adds to my inspiration relationship, like my bank, right? And so it's not always inspired, but these kinds of things inspire me. And then I have those days, like we all have, where there's that crappy client who like doesn't like anything and is like, hey, remember this whole proposal you wrote? Can you write it in a different language and send it by tonight? You know, they do this stupid thing, and I have to come back to this bank and remember these kinds of moments where I was serving, where I feel like I was added value to someone that needed it, that it was my words and my experience and my look and my being a woman and my being brown, or, you know, all of my life experiences that led these words to land to this particular person in exactly the way that he, she, they needed to hear it. Like that keeps me inspired. It's why I teach. It's why I write. It's why I did Gray Zones for free. I'm not here to run an agency. You know, running an agency makes me money so I can do what I want to do. But I am here, I think, you know, to use my gift of communication and to help people see things differently that they may not have seen otherwise. And so every time I do that, like I wake up earlier the next day, don't need my coffee, you know, I'm working out, like all of it just adds up. And then the days that I don't do this, you know, and if I have too many of them, I don't work out, I eat like crap, I'm procrastinating, you know, so I'm either one or the other. You're catching me inspired because I love this group and I love what we're doing here. But talk to me after I talk to like a pharma client. Very different.
Oh yeah.
Very different.
So now I have a bunch of questions. Now you got me rolling. So
I'm here for you. Also mediocre.
So all of my 53 wonderful family members from all across the country in all wonderful shades, there's a good handful of them that are going to be running into the job world soon.
Mm-hmm.
If you can like dial back, you know, some years to when you were getting your foot into the door, how did you deal with rejection?
Yeah. I still don't deal with rejection very well. I have to tell you, this is a question I might pass on, but I will. My first instinct is this: make sure you shouldn't be starting your own company. You know, I'm a huge fan of entrepreneurship and all the autonomy that it provides. So from the very first thing you said, if they're looking for jobs, you know, just in case, is there a thing you're amazing at? Is there a passion that you want to follow through on? Is there a service that you can provide better than anyone else? Because maybe this is a great time for you to be in business, especially if you're in the darker shades, you know, because we have some momentum where people are willing to stand behind us for some of the first time ever, you know, and that little boost helps so much. Even the like, come on, you can do it helps so much. Ask anybody who's watched a race. You know, and so this is a great time to start a business. A lot of the best businesses start in a recession because if you can make it now, you will make it anytime. I started mine in 2009. I'm unbreakable. You know, that's where we want. So that would be my first thing. Before you go for a job, just in case, if we can get 25% of them starting businesses, I'm going to be very happy. And then for the rest of the 75, rejection is not about you. It's about them. It's like this or something better. Just think that. If this doesn't work out, it's because something better is right around the corner. And keep that belief. Because that energy is how you get that job. I started this whole thing with your passion will get you the job. It is contagious. How many deals I've done. Do you know how small I am? Like I have a small company. We work with Nike, Facebook, Venmo, PayPal, Citi, Capital One, First Republic Bank. Like the clients are ridiculous because of passion. If I'm in a pitch, I'm winning that pitch. Right? That's the attitude that I want the other 75% to have. The first 25% who starting their company definitely need this as well. But, you know, and if you don't get it, well, bye, next. It's like dating. Next, swipe, move on.
Right.
Next one.
Exactly.
Okay, I probably wouldn't end it with the swipe part, but do you, Mona?
How much you can learn by treating many things like relationships, though, like, you know, just a lot of this is like, okay, well, if this person doesn't want you, like, is that really about you or is it all about them and what's going on there? They might call you in a year. We have won so many clients 3 years later. You know, I saw you at some talk and I wrote down your name and now that we have budget, we'd love to have you come in. So you don't know what's going to happen. It's not rejection. You just called it rejection. Watch your labels.
Dang, write that one down, folks. Watch your labels.
your
I
labels.
like that one. I like that one a whole lot. So, I mean, one thing that I'm definitely getting from this last answer is pretty much what we got from. We had a Super Bowl winning athlete from the Baltimore Ravens on almost over a month ago now. But he was basically what the gist of his conversation with us was. It's all how you show up.
Mm-hmm.
And just be ready to win at the end of the day. And it was like a winner's mentality. So that's something that I think I've gained from your chat with us. And I really appreciate
I would say
everything that you're sharing with us.
I would say the twist that I would say is definitely how you show up and your mindset, because you control your mindset.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so whatever is happening, this is what you're going to learn in Gray Zones. I really hope you guys do it, because you'll see what I'm trying to show you is how little control you have over your mindset. And the more you can get that control, no matter what's happening around you, the more successful you're going to be, because you're centered and ready. Other people may not be, but you are.
Yeah.
And that,
just so everybody knows, again, Gray Zones is free. You can participate anytime, jump on there, you know, anytime, join the chat. I'm doing it. Mona's doing it. We're there all the time. So you can catch us there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really
I'll put it on you guys Slack when I get a second. Any other questions, good folks? Are we good? I see all the thank yous.
Thank you.
We love you, Mona.
I'm really happy to be here. If you all, no, seriously, please connect with me on LinkedIn, and anybody who's in the UI UX space, if there's anything I can do for you there. On Instagram, if you want to watch like craziness with my kids, because usually that's all that's there, but that's Mona Patel. Twitter, I don't check that often, but you're more than welcome to connect there. And then my email is mona@motivatedesign.com. Like, if you have something that you did not feel comfortable sharing in this format but want to ask, like, please do. You know, this is our community. We have to take care of each other. So I'm happy to just go back and forth on that as well.
Indeed. Well, Mona, this is actually our last Sunnyside chat in the program. So I'm glad that we're ending it with like a big bang from you. I mean, we've had 10 amazing, well, you're the 10th, but we have had 10 amazing speakers from across industries, from advertising to PR to government to athletics. To digital technology. If we have people from Facebook here, we've had people from Disney here. We've had so many wonderful people. So I think this is definitely, it's not even the icing. This is like the candles that are on fire on the cake. So we really appreciate your time, your talent, and your truth, and spending it with these wonderful young people from all across the country that have taken a gamble on Clarence, myself, and the rest of the Growth Initiative gang and 100 Roses from Concrete. They decided to spend 8 weeks with us, and they're literally killing every single client meeting that they're in. They're creating great creative that's all going to be on TV in probably a month or so. They're all doing it from different parts of the country. And I mean, of course, New York, but definitely other parts of the country as well. Cali, Minneapolis, Nebraska, everywhere in between, we're there. So they're just doing really great work. But I always tell them that I'm trying to surround them with the very best people that I know, or that people that I know. And now that I know you, so now I know you too.
I am already thinking. I have a lot of people I'd love to send your way, for sure.
So we really appreciate it. We really appreciate your time.
And also GIs, salute. I gotta, salute the GIs, Put that in there.
Yes, the gifts are incredible. So Mona, we're gonna let you go. Clarence, we're gonna let you go because they got some work to do in their breakouts tonight. Hopefully we're not on until midnight again. If we are, we are. It is what it is. But yeah, thank you both so much for the final Sunnyside chat, and see you both on the other side.
Awesome. See y'all later.
Be well and stay
Bye.
safe. All right.